Right, Shalom, all praises to Yahawah, bahasham, Yahawashi, bahasham, Rcha, Kodash. Now, I recently did a video and said I should do a video on this. So, we're here. So it says, according to this, I'll click on the website itself. Because I'll often say, so-called Old Testament, so-called New Testament. Now, some people say, oh, so you only believe in Old Testament, or you only believe in New Testament. Sort of throw them off. So this is the clarification of that so-called title I'm putting up on it. So it said, start this sentence here. The Old Testament, a name coined by Melito of Sardis in the 2nd century CE, is longer than the Hebrew Bible, in part because Christian editors divided particular works into two sections, but also because different Christian groups consider as canonical some texts not found in the Hebrew Bible. For example, although the Hebrew Canon, and that's a Greek word canon, which goes back to a reed or a measuring stick. Although the Hebrew Canon consists of 24 books, the Old Testament of Roman Catholics comprises 46 books, and that of most Protestant churches has 39. For further discussion of both Jewish and Christian attitudes towards the Hebrew Bible, see Hebrew Bible. For full treatment, see biblical literature. Now you see the idea of Old Testament. Now that is in the scriptures. Now we'll look at this first. So if I was to put in Old Testament, right, that comes up. If I was to put in New Testament, this comes up. Now not just because it starts in Matthew or through Revelation is it the so-called New Testament. The New Testament is a specific thing, just like when you go into, I'll just pull it back again, Old Testament. Now this isn't the only time the so-called Old Testament, the idea of what it's referring to here is mentioned, but that is not, when it says Old Testament here, it's not talking of or let's say when it says the Old Diatheke or Diatheke, however you get into that word, it's not talking of the books that we would say, oh, that's the Old Testament. Let's just get into it. Right, so first we'll deal with the Old Testament one, because that's probably the clearest thing to do. All right, 2 Corinthians 3 and 12. Seeing then that we have such hope, we use great plainness of speech, and not as Moses, which put a veil over his face, that the children of Israel could not steadfastly look to the end of that which is abolished. But their minds were blinded, for until this day remaineth the same veil untaken away in the reading of the Old Testament, which veil is done away in Hamashiach. Now you go into this word for testament or Old Testament. So the word for old is palaios, old, ancient, no longer new, worn by use, the worse for wear, old. So the old, and what does this say here? Diatheke.
Strong's G 1242. Diatheke.
Right, so what's it talking about? It says a disposition, arrangement of any sort, which one wishes to be valid, the last dispossession, which one makes of his earthly possessions after his testament, which really that's just a whole wordy sentence, meaning a so-called will today. And then it says there actually, a testament or will. It says a compact, a covenant, a testament. Yahweh's covenant with Noah, etc. So when you read this, the idea of a testament here is talking about the covenant, right? The covenant that came before. Similarly, when we go into, like we have here, Matthew 26:28, for this is my blood of the New Testament, which is shed for many for the remission of sins. Now what could it read? This is my blood of the new covenant. Right, that's what it could read. Similarly, Luke 1:72, to perform the mercy promised to our fathers and to remember his holy covenant. Right, Zakah is Kodash. What is it? Barayath. Let's check that. Now, covenant. If we go into covenant, this word for covenant is Barayath. So it says covenant, alliance, pledge between men, treaty, alliance, league, man to man. constitution, ordinance, monarch to subjects, agreement, pledge, man to man, alliance, and that's talking about the two men making a deal. Right, it's not talking about a funny man. It says alliance of friendship, alliance of marriage between God and man, alliance of friendship, covenant, divine ordinance with signs or pledges, phrases, covenant making, covenant keeping, covenant violation. Now, concerning the Old Testament, the Old New Testament, the Old Testament, the New Testament, the Old Covenant, the New Covenant, this is why I say a so-called New Testament, because the New Testament, the covenant that is to be anew, is referenced in the so-called Old Testament, right? The writings from Genesis to Malachi. Really, it's written throughout or alluded to in certain places. So we'll get this Jeremiah. In fact, before we do that, Romans 9 and 3, the classic. If I could wish that myself were accursed from Hamashiach, the anointed for my brethren, my kinsmen according to the flesh, who are Israelites, to whom pertaineth the adoption, and the glory, and the covenants, and the giving of the law, and the service of the Most High, and the promises, whose are the fathers, and of whom, as concerning the flesh, the anointed came, who is over all, Yahawah blessed forever, Amen. Right, so according to this, the covenants, even in the so-called New Testament, the so-called New Covenant, right, even then it's saying that where's it going? There it is. The diathekes pertain to Israel, man. So even then. So now let's rewind, go into some history that is prophecy truly, was penned in history, like written down in history, but it's still yet to come to pass. Jeremiah 31:31, behold, the days come, saith Yahawah, that I'll make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, which my covenant they break, although I was an husband unto them, saith Yahawah. Like we touched on in the last video that I recorded and uploaded today, which is the so-called 10th of November, which really means the 9th month, but it's the 11th month. Yeah, you can actually look that up. Anyway, which I was an husband unto them, because it said, the Lord surnamed us. Israel, mine elect, I have surnamed thee. Isaiah 45 and 4. So Israel's the elect nation that was surnamed. Right, so the Lord was an husband unto us. He put his name upon us. Why? Because he owns us. Okay, saith Yahawah. But this shall be the covenant that I'll make with the house of Israel. After those days, saith Yahawah, I will put my law in their inward parts, and write in their hearts, and will be their power, and they shall be my people. So until this happens with the house of Israel, the house of Judah, together collectively, they are known as the house of Israel, the house of Yasharallah, Bayath Yasharallah. However, that's for the Israelites. So Christians, I don't know what the you're talking about, bro. It says the covenants belong to Israel, the Israelites. Now, until this has come to pass, you can't say we're in the new covenant. Right? So even the New Testament, the writings that are called the New Testament or the New Covenant, even then, you can't say it's been fulfilled because it's not come to pass yet. This that is promised to the nation of Israel, and it is the whole nation, starting with the elect, but it is the whole nation, and then you can say this is the New Testament. So really, you can't even call the writings in the so-called New Testament the New Testament, because it's not. It's writing of the time to come, but so is the so-called Old Testament, the OT. So that's why I say so-called New Testament, so-called Old Testament. Then Hebrews 8, which says the same thing. It doesn't say, just like in Romans the 9th chapter, still talking about how it pertains to Israel. This doesn't say actually it pertains to the Christians. Which if you just listen to a Christian fucking waffle for half an hour, or just talk for however long they're talking, and really a sentence, if they're going into their doctrine, a sentence, would you'd be able to tell they were going off. Because this didn't say going to Christians, so let's read it. Hebrews 8 and 8, for finding fault with them, he saith, behold, the days come, saith the heavenly Father, when I'll make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, because they continued not in my covenant, and I regarded them not, saith the Lord. For this shall be the covenant that I'll make with the house of Israel after those days, saith the Lord, I'll put my laws into their mind, and write them in their hearts, and I'll be to them a power, and they shall be to me a people. Right, and the same thing in the next verse says it in Jeremiah 31. I sort of skipped it for time purpose, so we'll read it in this bit. And they shall not teach every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, Know the Lord, for all shall know me from the least to the greatest. And you have Christians to this day, so-called Christians, yeah, they will say, we're in the new covenant. We're all in the new covenant. But meanwhile, my man's trying to convince you, yeah, he's trying to teach you, every man his neighbor and every man his brother. Now, unless they're an Israelite, and you're an Israelite, they're not really your neighbor, they're not really your brother. According to the scriptures, he is. Yeah, but when it talks about the children of thy people, you shall not bear grudge against, in Leviticus, the 19th chapter, around about 16, I think, verse. When it's talking about Israelites. But they'll say, love thy neighbor is talking about literally your neighbor, anyone. Everyone's your brother. We're all brothers. We're all neighbors, according to Christian doctrine. Right? So he's teaching you that you're in the new covenant. When it says, according to the prophecy, that the new covenant, you won't be teaching your neighbor and your brother. So that's another point that means they don't know what they're talking about, man. And now we'll keep reading. It says, For I will be merciful unto their unrighteousness, and their sins and their iniquities will I remember no more. Who? The house of Israel, the house of Judah. Right? Edomites' sin are not just going to get wiped out because we are in the new covenant. Because the Israelites are in the new covenant, the Lord didn't forget about all the wickedness done unto his people. And it says, verse 13, In that he saith, the new covenant he hath made the first old. Now that which decayeth and waxeth old is ready to vanish away. Now we're sort of in an intermission period between both. Right? We're not under the old one because we're not getting put to death. The laws, the judgments are not going forth in that manner. And we're not in the new one because we're not perfect yet. Our flesh has not been changed. We've not been delivered out of captivity. So you can't really say that we're in either, definitively. But we're coming in because it's ready to vanish away. And this flesh, ready to vanish away. And when it gets done away with, that's when you can say this is the new covenant. This is the New Testament, if you like. So that's why I say so-called Old Testament, so-called New Testament. I pray it was edifying. On to the next one, Lord willing. All praises to Yahawah, bahasham, Yahawashi, bahasham,